Let's talk about Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. You know, it's an absolute titan of travel. But this isn't just a story about how big it is right now. We're going to dig into how its current dominance is actually bankrolling a huge multi-billion-dollar bet on what air travel is going to look like tomorrow.
So to really get a sense of just how big this whole operation is, let's kick things off with a number. A really, really big number. Over 108 million. Yeah, that's how many passengers flew through Hartsfield-Jackson in just the last year.
And, a number like that, well, it once again cements Atlanta's title as the undisputed busiest airport on the entire planet. And this isn't some fluke. They've pretty much owned that top spot for the better part of the last 20 years.
But look, this explainer is about way more than just impressive stats. The real question is this: how is all that success, all that money, fueling a super ambitious and, yeah, a very expensive vision for what air travel is going to be like in the future?
Okay, so let's pop the hood, right? Let's dive into the engine room and look at the numbers that really prove Atlanta is such a powerhouse. Because these metrics, they tell the whole story of why it's number one.
And what's really striking here is that the airport isn't just sitting on its lead, it's actually pulling away. I mean, look at this. You've got solid year-over-year growth in Q3 of 2025 across the board. More passengers, more planes taking off and landing, and a huge jump in cargo. It's like a machine that's just finding a higher gear. And guess what? That momentum isn't slowing down. Projections for the whole fiscal year show this trend continuing, with passenger numbers getting close to a mind-boggling 112 million. The trend line is, well, it's pointing straight up.
So who's the anchor holding this whole thing down? Well, it's Delta Airlines. Hartsfield-Jackson is their main global hub. What that means is that the huge majority of all that traffic, all those people, are connecting through Delta's massive network.
Okay, so all those passengers, all those planes, it all translates directly into some serious financial muscle. So let's follow the money, because this is where the story really starts to get good.
You know, an airport's financial health isn't just about the fees airlines pay. Not at all. As you can see here, Atlanta's strength comes from having a bunch of different revenue streams. Seriously, think about it. Everything from the coffee you buy to the parking space you use, it all adds up and contributes to their bottom line.
All right, now for a number that gets finance folks really excited. 2.10x. Now that's their debt service coverage ratio, which is just a fancy way of measuring financial safety. But here's what it means in simple terms. For every single dollar the airport has to pay on its debts, it's actually earning $2.10. That's not just a healthy cushion, that's a really, really comfortable one.
And that kind of financial stability, well, that's exactly why the big credit rating agencies, we're talking Moody's and S&P, are giving them top-tier ratings and a stable outlook. They're basically saying, yep, this place is well managed and a safe bet for the future.
And this right here is the absolute key. All that financial strength gives Atlanta the power to make a huge multi-billion-dollar bet on the airport of the future. And we're talking about a future that's smarter and a whole lot greener. So one of the key tools they're using to fund all this is something called a green bond. Just think of it like this. It's a special kind of loan where the money raised can only be spent on eco-friendly projects that have a positive impact on the environment.
And they are definitely not starting small. In September of 2025, Hartsfield-Jackson issued a massive green bond for over $1 billion, and all of that cash is earmarked specifically to fund their big sustainability goals.
But that billion-dollar bond, it's actually just one piece of a much bigger picture. It's a key part of this massive campaign they call ATL Next, and that's a jaw-dropping $12.6 billion plan to completely overhaul the entire airport. So what does all this actually mean for you when you're traveling through? Well, it means real, tangible upgrades you can actually see and feel. They're going to widen concourses so it's less crowded, upgrade the SkyTrain between terminals, and just generally renovate things to make getting around easier, all while pumping up the use of renewable energy everywhere. And this timeline really shows you their two big ambitions. On one hand, they're gearing up for some serious growth. They're aiming for 125 million passengers a year by 2030. But at the same time, they're making this powerful commitment to go fully green, aiming for a 100% clean energy campus just 5 years after that. But look, you don't make a multi-billion-dollar bet like this without some major risks. So to really get the full picture, we've got to talk about the challenges Hartsfield-Jackson is facing down the road.
So the big concerns that analysts point to really fall into three main buckets. First, there's that heavy reliance on Delta. Second is the mountain of debt they're taking on to pay for all this. And third, of course, is the fierce competition from other giant airports around the globe, like Dubai and DFW.
So let's zero in on that biggest risk, being so tied to Delta, and kind of weigh it against the airport's core strength. Because yeah, over 80% of their traffic is tied to one airline. But on the flip side, they still have a base of 27 different carriers flying in and out. And there's just this incredibly strong global demand for flights to and from Atlanta that goes way beyond just one airline. Which of course leaves us with the big, multi-billion-dollar question. You've got intense competition on one side, a mountain of debt on the other. So is this huge bet on a greener, smarter future the masterstroke that keeps Atlanta at #1 for decades? Or is it a massive gamble that could risk it all? For now, all we can do is watch.